Hello and welcome to Fearless DIY Music. My name is Tristan Lass, and today I'd like to talk about something that a lot of us do and a lot of people do and present on the interwebs, which is taking a relatively inexpensive guitar and transforming it into a custom guitar, highly modded with lots of aftermarket parts, refinishing. And you see a lot of these stories on the internet and on YouTube in particular, where they're like, okay, so I bought this guitar for, a couple $100, and then I did this, and this to it, and they show it off, and they're like, wow, this is really cool. It's a great player. So we all know that these things can be done. But the thing that I always wonder about, do people keep these guitars for very long? Do they actually become everyday players? Do they become stage guitars? Are they actually used? So in my hands right now, I have an Epiphone Les Paul Jr. This is a 2006. This was a $99 special from Musician's Friend. There was like a Christmas sale or something at the end of 2006. And I bought this just like, okay, 99 bucks. I'm not out much and I'll do some work on it and we'll see what happens. So when I first got it, it had the sunburst finish on it, and it had cheap tuners, and it had the cheap wraparound bridge, and it had a lousy pickup in it, and the electronics were nothing to write home about. Fretwork was bad. So it was your typical $99 guitar. Well, here I am. It's 2023, and I've had it for many, many years. And I have used it on stage, and I have recorded with it, and it's a guitar that I come back to. And so I just wanted to talk about, what I did to it in a little bit more detail, and also show off some of the wacky electronics that I have inside this guitar. It's got some unique wiring, which I think has made it more appealing for me to play. So I'll share that little circuit with you as we go into the video a little bit further. But anyway, so the very first thing that I did is that I got rid of the tuners, the stock tuners, and put some Grover open backs on it. And I've been super happy with these, and they have the cool kind of, vintage feel, and what you probably would have found on a, an old budget guitar back in the 50s. And that's kind of what I was going for, kind of that vibe. And then the next thing I did was I sprayed the guitar an approximation of TV yellow. I always wanted a TV yellow junior, so I went to the hardware store and got this cream colored paint and sprayed it on. There's nothing fancy here. There is an orange peel. It doesn't have clear coat on it even. It's just a straight spray job, but it turned out really well, and I've been amazed at how well it's held up over the years. There's a few nicks and scratches in it, but not much. And I'm actually quite pleased with that. Along with the tuners, I purchased a splittable or stack. It's a stacked Seymour Duncan P90, so it's not officially a P90, and it's cool because you can, cut the output on it. And I usually run it in the low output mode most of the time, and then pull it up when I need a boost. And let's take just a quick listen to this pickup with no distortion. And that's with it in its low output mode with no tone control on it. So that's the bright switch setting of the circuit that I'll go into more detail with. Then when you throw some dirt on it, it sounds just fantastic. So I'm very happy with the sound of this pickup in this platform. We will be going through all the tonal possibilities when we get to the circuit here in a moment. The other thing that had to really be worked on is I put a new nut on it. And then I went through and did the usual, level and dress of the frets, just to make sure that I could get them as, perfect as possible, given that this guitar, didn't have a whole lot of quality control when it came out of the factory. So anyway, all that aside, the final piece of the puzzle for me was a few years ago. The intonation on this guitar was good, but I wanted it to be better, especially if I was going to be using it for recording. So I put a Gotha wraparound bridge on it that has full intonation on each of the strings. And that just kind of sent it over the cliff and made it into a guitar that I was happy to grab off the wall anytime. So anyway, let's get to that magical circuit that I've been talking about. So the way I have this wired is that when this pot is pushed down, it's on a push-pull, it's in the lower output mode. So, and then when I pull it up, I get a boost out of it. It just boosts the output a little bit. Which is nice when you're doing like a lead or something like that. And then you can, you know, just give it that little extra push over the cliff if you are playing live with a band especially. All right, now let's get to this tone circuit. This is something that I cooked up on my own. I really love on, dual throw, dual pole mini switches. I put them on a lot of my instruments just for fun to see what all I can make the circuit do. So with this particular circuit, what I have going on is when I'm all the way down, it's a mud switch. So what that does is it basically cuts off a lot of the treble. I'm gonna turn off my dirt pedal and let's go to a fuzz. And this is what it sounds like with the fuzz on. So what that does is it gives you that doomy, sludgy thing, you know, kind of just very blah. And I really like that with the fuzz pedal. Now let's keep the fuzz pedal on, and then we'll go up to the bright setting. And you can hear what it sounds like there. So you can have that going on to get a little bit more sizzle, and then just drop right back down to that if you just want to go. And like I said, I really like that just if you're going to do something kind of doomy and slow and just kind of seasick. And anyway, and then the middle setting of this tone control puts you, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the fuzz for now and put my dirt back on. The middle position puts you on your potentiometer. So when you turn up, mud, and then bright. And what I love about that is that, so if I have my tone where I have it right now about halfway, what I can do is I can have my super bright sizzle, then I can mellow it a little bit, and then I can just completely dump all the treble, all with the flicks of this little switch. So I find it a very, very valuable little circuit. It is not that hard to make. I have a schematic that's been showing here as I've been talking about it. You should give it a shot. One note on this particular wiring and the way that I did it is that if you roll the tone all the way up and you go to that position, you get nothing. So you have to be, wait a second here. Okay, let's turn my volume up. That might help. Okay, so when you turn the tone all the way up, it acts as a kill switch. So that's kind of cool. And then when you just put it up a little bit, it re-engages. So when it's maxed, nothing. Move it just a hair, and you're right there. And then I like to darken it up just a little bit more. So anyway, going back to talking about modding, inexpensive instruments, a lot of times when I see what people are doing, a lot of it is cosmetics that may not stand the test of time. A lot of times there are swaps where it's like, okay, let's put really exotic parts on it, and then it just doesn't quite fit together. And what I feel like I accomplished with this particular build is that I wasn't trying to reinvent the Les Paul Jr. from the ground up or make it into something gaudy or to really go nuts with it as far as like going really expensive with the parts. I mean, these tuners cost about $50 and they fit the guitar well and they fit the aesthetic of the guitar and they function perfectly. And they give it that old vibe, which I really like, which is what I was going for with this guitar. Another thing is that, I didn't decide to, go completely nuts with the pickup selection. It is, in essence, a P90. I do like the ability to coil split with it. That's great. But I didn't buy like a high-end boutique pickup. This is just a Seymour Duncan, and I think this costs like $75. The electronics are a little bit exotic on this guitar, but I used it as an experimental platform. I came up with my own like circuit to see if it would work. And when I discovered that it was functional, I went ahead and drilled the holes and I put it into the guitar. And I use it for real. Like these are things, having one pickup, then having the ability to go from a bright to a warm to a completely, mud sound on this pickup is fantastic. And that's not even calling into play the coil split. So when I do the boost on the pickup, I have 3 tones. And when I do the boost, and when I have the boost off, I still have 3 tonal options, all just with the flick of that little switch. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of talk about, being real about taking a cheap guitar and what your expectations should be. The fretwork, obvious. You're going to have to do fretwork on an inexpensive instrument. The nut's probably going to have to be fixed, but I didn't put like a bone nut or even a tusk nut on this. I just did an ABS plastic nut, standard issue. I didn't want to, oh, I'm going to put bone on this and I'm going to go completely nuts. The bridge, this is a little bit of a boutique-y thing, but just having the intonation, especially given the nature of the fact this is truly a budget guitar, that's something I opted to do, but that was many years later. I played this with the wraparound for quite some time. So anyway, the ultimate point is to make something that you're really actually going to play. Don't set really high expectations and go out and buy a huge bucket of parts that cost 5 times what you paid for the guitar until you have the guitar for a while. And I advise people to do kind of what I did with this one. I gradually upgraded it. The circuit wasn't in there in the beginning. This bridge certainly wasn't there in the beginning. The tuners came right away just because it had like plastic back tuners on it and they just didn't work. So I would advise, if you do buy a budget guitar, start by just replacing the things that just really don't work well and do the fretwork. And after a while, you'll, discover, oh wow, I really should do this or that. I'm just saying, don't go all in. Don't spend a ton of money on a guitar that's not going to be worth anything. I know this guitar, if I tried to sell it, I wouldn't get anything for it. This is a guitar I'm going to keep. And that's another thing. If you're going to do all that work and buy all those parts, really be sure that it's something that you're going to keep and you're going to play. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'd love to see in the comments other people's budget builds and how long they've had them. I mean, I've had this one since 2006, so I'd love to hear stories from other people who have heavily modded a budget guitar and ended up keeping it and playing it for a long time. All right, please hit the subscribe button, leave me a comment, and I'll see you next time. Take care.